In the forgotten shadows of a dying asteroid station, a broken mechanic with a rusted prosthetic hand faces a dragon who has lost his fire. While high above, a secret council of unseen rulers watches in silence, waiting to see if a single act of defiance can reignite not just flame, but purpose itself. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The foundry called Kelvin Rim 12 spun slowly in the dark, a metal wreath around a silent rock. Its hull carried the color of old coins, and its lights pulsed like tired heartbeat monitors. Inside Bay 3, Marin Quill lay beneath a groaning ore lifter, a wrench held in the grip of his prosthetic left hand. The hand clicked softly as he worked, a steady whisper that matched his breathing. Dust, oil, and coolant painted his face in shades of work that never washed off. Marin was a quiet man, but not a small one. Life had sanded him down to useful edges. He used to design drives for ships that carried whole towns. Now he kept mining rigs and food freezers alive, with patience and stubborn care. It had been 12 years since his tribunal had pushed him out of the clean corridors and the gentle way of being official. Exile had remade him into a fixer of last chances. The foundry's deck shuddered, bolts hummed. Marin slid out and saw the reason. Two heavy, taloned feet filled the lig. He followed the line of the legs, found bronze scales dulled by time, and then the face, a square jaw hung with a thick silver beard, and amber eyes that held storms and faraway fires. A stocky dragon stood there, a veteran's weight in every scar. Across his chest lay a complicated harness of pipes and struts. It was silent. "You the mechanic?" The dragon's voice sounded like stone rolled by slow water. "Depends on what needs fixing," Marin said, wiping his face with a piece of cloth that had forgotten how to be clean. The dragon drew in a breath, and a tiny smudge of smoke escaped, nothing more. His shoulders dropped a fraction. "I am Bram Emberhide," he said. "I used to guard routes that cut through pirate country. My fire went out years ago. This harness gave me something like it for a while. Now it coughs and sleeps. I cannot work. I cannot light a hearth. I cannot light a memory." His eyes flicked away. "If you take coin, I have some." Marin looked at the harness. He did not touch it first. He stepped around, watched the lines and the link points, the old seals and the built-over repairs. Someone very skilled had made this long ago. It was not a machine that forced fire. It was a translator that listened for it. "I'll look," Marin said. "Keep your coin for now." Above Bay 3, far beyond any scanner, a clear sphere hung like a drop of ice. Inside it, members of the Stellar Concord Council watched in a ring. Small lights drifted across their robes and shells and cilia. Some had hands, some had tendrils. One had only a field of delicate sparks that formed faces when words needed gravity. "That is Marin Quill," said a thin elder with sea glass eyes. "The one who broke the rule to save the enemy's children." "The rule kept borders from fire," said another. "But mercy kept the fire from hearts. Once." "We observe," the presiding voice said. "We do not touch." Marin fetched a cracked scanner and a small lamp. He asked Bram to sit on the reinforced bench and breathe as if he meant to shape flame. The harness stuttered, tried to wake, and fell back. The scanner told a simple story. The core that turned brain signals into ignition cues was blistered and crystal stuck. He held it up. It looked like a metal flower that had tried to keep blooming in a drought. "This is gone," Marin said, Others would call the whole thing gone, but the pattern is not wrong. Your body still sends tiny messages down old roads. The machine was built to hear them and answer. The messages are faint, that is all. Bram watched him with a mix of respect and fear. Every station between here and the drift route said it cannot be done. They were talking about spare parts, Marin said, not about ideas. He spread a scrap of paper and drew quick shapes with a dull pencil. He did not draw fire. He drew paths leading to a door that had stuck from disuse. He hummed as he thought, a small sound he did not know he made. Bram placed a credit stick on the bench. I can pay. Marin pushed it back gently. If it works, you can bring me a meal from the galley that doesn't taste like dust. If it doesn't, we will both still be here. The foundry lights dipped to night shift. The council sphere above them remained still. The presiding voice did not blink because it had no eyes, but its field of sparks pulsed with a rhythm very close to hope. Marin rolled his sleeves and began to take the harness apart. Each tube carried a little story in scratches and patches. Each bolt sang a different song of the day it had been turned. He cleaned, measured, and set aside. He muttered to himself in a language made of tasks. He raided the bay's recycling cages and came back with heat exchangers, an old cooling coil from a vegetable freezer, and a cracked memory core, still warm with someone's recipes. He might have smiled. The hand he had lost long ago had taught him to think like water. Find the path, even if you must cut your own. Bram dozed in fits, waking to watch Marin lean over tiny circuits, then heavy pipes, then the soft cables that would carry the hush of the brain. Once, Bram asked in a low voice, "Were you military?" Marin did not look up. "Once I was a person inside a system. The arm is not from broken machinery." "No," Marin said, and the word held both pain and peace. "It is from a day when I chose people over a rule." "Did it cost you everything?" Bram asked. Marin tightened a bolt. "No. It cost me the things I thought were everything. Later I learned what everything really is." The night shift hummed on. The council kept its silence. And in Bay 3, a new shape began to form on the bench. Not elegant, not polished, but purposeful, with clear paths for breath and thought to travel together, like old friends learning a new dance. The new rig looked nothing like the old harness. The first one had been smooth, all gentle arcs and proud stamps from a famous forge. Marin's build was honest and a little rough. Pipes from a coolant maze ran alongside braided signal lines he stripped from a retired shuttle. A processor stack made from 2 damaged cores and a food unit logic board sat in a sleeve of heat wool. He bolted on a compact compressor salvaged from a pressure door. The result was neither pretty nor shy. Bram watched with careful eyes. He had spent years being the strongest in whatever room he entered. This morning, he felt like glass that could hold water only if no one knocked at the table. "Will it listen to me?" he asked. "That is the point," Marin said. "Machines can force, but good machines listen. I won't erase what you are. I will amplify what refuses to die." The council sphere brightened, faint as dawn through fog. A counselor with coppery plates clicked quietly. He refuses the fast path. He refuses the perfect part. He chooses the impossible one, respect. "And yet," said another, "respect is efficient in the long run. A being who feels whole will keep the fix whole." Marin spread his paper again, now stained and torn, and sketched a loop. "Here," he said to Bram, is where your brain shouts to the old glands. They do not answer, but they echo in the nerves. I'm building a translator that hears the echo, not the shout, and speaks back with breath and fuel at the right moment. The key is feedback. You must feel the fire as yours, not as borrowed heat. Bram nodded slowly. Sometimes, he said, voice soft, I dream I still breathe it. I wake and taste cold air. I hide it, but the emptiness aches. The body remembers, even when the world forgets, Marin said. They worked through the cycle. Marin took a break only when his hand began to tremble, and even then he held the tremor and smiled at it like an old friend. Bram learned his role in the odd ritual. He fetched coils, held lights, and stood very still when Marin needed to test the shape against his chest and shoulders. Once, Marin adjusted a strap and stepped back, eyes narrowed. Tell me if anything pinches. It does, Bram said. Here, above the third rib. Marin shifted a panel by a finger's width. Better? Better. Good. Pain should never be the language of a fix. The foundry's vent fans thudded on, off, on. Somewhere far in the ring, a crew cheered a successful ore pour. Life moved in its small and great ways. In the sphere above, the council murmured about policy and tides of duty. But their attention kept curling back to Bay 3, where two exiles, one by sentence, one by loss, built something new out of scrap and will. Why do we watch? Asked a junior voice, clear but uncertain. The presiding field of sparks answered gently. Because we once called a healer a traitor, and it bent the shape of our law. We watch to see if we can bend it back. Marin added the last part, a neural sensor pad, lined with soft conductive mesh. He had found the mesh in a box marked old med stuff, maybe. He tested the circuits with a small tone generator. And the harness answered with a hum, low and eager. We should test, Marin said, voice steady despite the thud of his heart. Not full fire. We start with a whisper. Bran took a breath that shook lightly in his chest. Whisper, he repeated. Before they began, Marin did something very small. He touched the edge of the metal bench with the fingers of his real hand and closed his eyes for the count of 3. He did not pray, exactly. He only told the room and the machine and his bones that he meant to do no harm. They fitted the rig to Bram. It settled with weight, but also with an odd grace, like a coat sewn to an old shape. Marin clipped the fuel line he had built from reclaimed filters and an oxygen bottle. The gauges trembled, then stood at ready. I'm going to link the translator, Marin said. It will listen for the faint pattern behind your breath. When you try to make fire, don't force, ask. Bram closed his eyes. His chest rose. The translator hummed, a newborn sound. Marin's thumb lay near the emergency cutout switch. The council's glass caught a light none of them cast. Bram breathed, the gauges lifted, the pipes warmed. The hum braided with another tone, one only Bram could feel. He opened his mouth. A gentle tongue of flame moved forward, clean as a candle in still air. It held the shape of yes. It made a small blue song. Bram startled, like someone who had heard his name spoken in a crowd. The flame flickered out. He blinked at Marin. Did you see? I saw, Marin said, smiling in a way that made him look younger. Again, softly. Bram tried once more. The flame came, the length of a hand, then the length of an arm. It brightened, then settled. Bram began to laugh, not loud, but deep. Tears found the edge of his eyes, and he let them. Marin laughed too, even as he checked every gauge once, twice, 3 times, because joy does not argue with caution. The council did not clap, but for a long moment, no one spoke. Even policy allowed silence to do the talking. "This is not the end of testing," Marin said at last. "We must teach the loop to stay steady. We will build in safeties. We will polish the rough paths. But Bram, listen to me." He leaned in, soft and serious. "The fire is yours. The rig only makes room for it." Bram touched the main conduit like it was a friend's arm. "I can feel it." "I can feel myself," Marin nodded. "Then we will teach the feeling to stay." "Will you take payment now?" Bram asked, half teasing, half breaking. Marin shook his head. "Bring me that dustless meal, and if this truly becomes a fix, bring me a challenge beside it." Bram's laugh filled the bay the way warm air fills a cold room. Above them, the sphere dimmed a shade, which for the council meant a change of heart had moved from if to when. They spent the next days teaching the rig to sing with Bram's body. Morning after morning, they built small routines: breath count, shoulder loosen, neck roll, signal check. Marin tuned the feedback so Bram could sense the flame not only in his mouth, but along the bones where fire used to begin. Bram learned to scale heat like a musician warming an instrument. Gentle notes first, then full tone. On the fourth day, Marin said, "We will try a controlled column now, toward the slag wall. I've marked a circle. I want the flame to land there and no wider." Bram squared his weight, chin low, eyes soft. He breathed in, felt the mesh catch the echo, felt the translator reply. He opened his jaw. A spear of light and heat jumped alive, clean and straight, stopping where he asked it to stop. The circle on the wall glowed to cherry red and cooled with a hiss. Bram closed his mouth, and the last of the heat curled away like a bow made after a song. There was no wild cheer. There was something better, a full quiet that held both relief and awe. Marin's shoulders lowered, and his smile reached his eyes. Bram placed one hand over the plate where the neural mesh sat and whispered, "Thank you," as if speaking to old bones. "Now we test safeties," Marin said gently, "and then we build a way to share this." They pushed the rig hard, then harder, and it refused to misbehave. If pressure rose too fast, vents opened. If signal scrambled, the translator paused and waited for calm. Marin logged what worked and what did not in a small book with smudged pages. Bram learned the dance steps until his body knew them better than his thoughts. After the final test, Bram asked, "Do you ever miss the old corridors, the clean meetings, the loud praise?" Marin shrugged. "A small thing. I miss some people. I do not miss praise that would have kept me from doing the right thing on a bad day." He looked at the rig. "Besides, this bay knows my name now. The old halls never really did. Word moves the way water moves through standing stones, slowly, then all at once." The first to arrive after Bram was a winged courier with lightning scars across her shoulders. She stood in the doorway, hands folded. "I heard you help beings be their own names again," she said. "My arcs fade when I need them. I was told to retire. I am not ready to be a memory." Marin and Bram did not promise. They simply listened. Marin drew in his little book, asked questions, brought out a tray of salvaged parts that might want to become something else. Bram fetched tea, carried a stool, and spoke of the way fear can stand very close to hope without being the boss of it. By week's end, the courier held a steady blue arc between her palms, the exact charge she asked for. She left with a soft laugh and eyes that had space again. After her came a singer whose crystal ridges had cracked in battle, a diver locked out of deep pressure by an accident, and a child whose rib lights had dimmed after soaking up the wrong sun. Each one brought a different shape of grief. Each one left with a tool that did not hide who they were, but helped it speak again. Marin did not copy rigs, he made conversations in metal. Bram became the bridge, translating feelings into function. They built not a shop, but a place people trusted to say their real need out loud. They called it the Ember Clinic, and the name fit the rooms, because embers are not a failure of fire. They are the proof that something burns long after anyone thought it would. Above them, the Concord argued. "We must step in," said a hard voice. "He was judged." "He was judged by fear," answered the presiding field. "Fear is a poor carpenter. Look what better hands build." A vote was taken in private, as votes in high rooms often are. What followed was not a decree from on high with trumpets and banners. It was a deposit, large and anonymous, that paid for a cleaner bay, safer tools, and a patient wing with quiet lights. Paperwork moved through channels like a fish through reeds. Old charges dissolved, and a pardon found its slow way into an envelope addressed without fanfare. Marin did not know any of this yet. He only knew that the line outside grew longer, and the thank you letters on the wall created their own glow. Bram taped up a new page each day, and when the wall filled, they built another. "We need help," Bram said one night, counting requests. "More hands, more minds, more kindness." "We teach," Marin said. "We share every design. No hoarding, no secrets." They sent for apprentices from the Foundry's crews, from nearby stations, from planets where tools were loved and rules were questioned kindly. A young fitter named Sola joined, quick with wires and calmer than most storms. The retired medic named Grennan came too, bringing knowledge of bodies and a laugh that repaired rooms on contact. In time, there were 5, then 9, then many, who wore simple aprons and carried pencils behind their ears as if curiosity were a uniform. Bram stood at the door each morning to greet arrivals and say, "Today we will try to give you back a name you thought you lost." People would cry summit. They would also breathe differently before they even sat down, because someone had said something right at the threshold. "This is not a miracle house," Marin would add, smiling. "This is a patient house. Patience is how miracles show their work." And that is how the Ember Clinic became the place where broken things learned that broken is just another way for light to enter. Years pass the way light passes through dust. You can see each beam if you look, but mostly you feel the room grow brighter. The clinic grew like that. Not loud, not proud, only steady. They fixed rigs, but what they truly repaired were stories that had stalled mid-sentence. On a certain morning, the corridor filled with quiet footsteps. Beings of many shapes gathered in the main bay, their faces soft with the kind of joy that trembles. Bram had arranged something without telling Marin. Sola stood beside him, trying to hide a grin and failing. Marin walked in and stopped like a wire had been cut. The courier from that first week stood near the front, arcs dancing on her knuckles. The diver lifted a hand in greeting, the sleeve of his pressure suit whispering. The singer hummed a tone so pure it made the hanging tools vibrate. "What is this?" Marin asked, cheeks already wet. "A warm thank you," Bram said, voice low and rough. "From the ones who found their names again." They pulled a cloth from a piece of sculpture set on a simple stand. It was fashioned from old ship metal, burnished to a soft shine. 2 hands held a small flame between them, one hand with seams and plates, one with scars and soft lines. Beneath it, a short inscription read, "For the one who taught machines to listen and people to trust." Marin touched the base like he might wake from a dream if he did it wrong. He did not speak for a while. The room did not mind. When he found words at last, they were plain. I only repaired what was already brave, he said. Someone coughed gently near the doorway, and a quiet official stepped in, holding a thin folder. No cloak, no guard, no speech. Just a steady gaze that said, I am here for a decent reason. The official opened the folder and handed Marin a page with the seal of the Concord. The first line made Marin sit down on the nearest crate. The old sentence had been lifted. The past was admitted as error. In its place lay an apology that did not try to excuse itself. There is more, the official said, softer. A proposal. Centers like this on major worlds, funded and free to the ones who need them most. We would like you to design the paths, not the buildings, the paths. Marin felt the room tilt in a way that was not dizzy and not fear. Bram's hand landed on his shoulder, a steadying mountain. What do you say, friend? Marin looked around. The bay, the benches, the rig that had begun as scrap and stubbornness. The apprentices who had grown into teachers, the letters on the walls. The sculpture's small flame, bright and not hot. Titles never fit me well, Marin said, but I can draw paths with a pencil. He smiled. We will send every design to every shop that wants them. No gate, no ladder pulled up after we climb. Make the knowledge a river. The official nodded as if a plan had landed where it always meant to land. The river is the plan, they said. That night, when celebration quieted and the clinic rested, Marin and Bram sat on the loading ramp, feet dangling over the star-cold dark. Bram breathed a neat ribbon of flame and used it to warm 2 cups of tea. The ease with which he shaped the heap made Marin laugh softly. Do you remember the first whisper? Marin asked. I remember thinking I was about to break your new machine, Bram said. And then I felt the flame speak back. I used to believe that if I lost a title, I lost my map, Marin said. Turns out there are many ways to draw where you're going. Bram nodded. We used to think fire only lived in glands. Then a friend showed me it can live in a loop of kindness and wire. Both are true. Both burn clean. High above, in a place no sensor could touch, the council watched the 2 figures on the ramp. The presiding field let its sparks drift in a pattern that meant contentment. A vote had been recorded somewhere that would remain in a small book locked in a quiet drawer. It said, in formal script, that law should learn to lag behind mercy less often. Should we reveal ourselves? Asked the junior voice, softer now, older by the shape of understanding. They do not need us to, said the presiding field. They have what we hope all our worlds can have, a purpose that includes others. Time moved kindly. More centers opened. Some in small towns with dusty streets. Some in cities that sang through the night. Each place held a bench, a light, and a promise. We will not call you obsolete. We will not say your story is finished. We will listen until we hear the part that still wants to speak. On Marin's 60th orbit, the bay filled again with faces and gifts of the simple sort. A coil bent into a heart, a jar of preserved pears, a song written on a napkin. Bram raised a cup and said, to broken things. Marin touched his cup to Bram's. To the stubborn people who sit with them until the cracks make room for light. The stars did what stars do. They kept old secrets and made new ones. The clinic did what a good place does. It stayed open, it kept records, it swept the floor, and it learned. The last line in a small report, filed in an archive no one visits for fun, reads like this. Function can be restored by craft. Identity is restored by trust. Build both. But if you asked Bram later, when a young dragon with fresh eyes and a fair question stood in the doorway and said, "Is it true you gave my uncle his fire?" He would grin and answer like this: "He had the fire all along. We only built a bridge so it could walk home." And in a galaxy that sometimes forgets how to be gentle, that kind of answer travels far. It warms hands. It warms halls. It warms hard rooms where big decisions are made. It also warms small rooms where two friends sit on a ramp and share tea. And that may be the best place for warmth to begin.